Hello, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Clare Thibodeaux. I'm the Vice President of Scientific Affairs with Cures Within Reach. And I'd like to start today's webinar by telling you a little bit about our organization and how we use repurposing to find treatments for unsolved diseases. For those of you who don't know Cures Within Reach, we are based in Chicago. We're a nonprofit. And for more than 15 years now, we have been focused specifically on funding catalytic clinical trials that test approved therapies, whether it's a device, a drug, a nutraceutical, a diagnostic, testing these approved therapies in new indications. The trials that we fund tend to be early stage, so pilot, phase 1, phase 2A. And what we found is that when these trials are successful, they can really act as a catalytic spark to leverage additional follow-on funding for larger confirmatory trials. As an organization, Cures Within Reach is disease agnostic. We don't focus on any one particular disease or even one patient population or geography. We currently have 51 ongoing trials in our portfolio, and those trials represent 36 diseases. The trials are taking place in the United States, as well as at sites in Europe, Asia, and Africa. So despite having a disease-agnostic focus, oncology has always been a large part of our portfolio. And currently, Cures Within Reach has 18 ongoing trials in oncology. Most of those are in the United States, but we do have 2 oncology trials in Africa, one in Nigeria and one in Tanzania. And again, we cover a variety of different cancer types, as well as both adult and pediatric cancer patients. We accept submissions from PIs, from researchers, all investigator initiated. So we really listen to the researchers to tell us what they think are exciting and potentially impactful opportunities to treat cancer with repurposed therapies. And Cures Within Reach's interest in oncology is longstanding, dating back to the early 2000s when we first funded Dr. Vincent Rajkumar at the Mayo Clinic. We funded Dr. Rajkumar's work testing thalidomide in multiple myeloma. This work was successful and captured the interest of industry, and in a short period of time became approved by the US FDA to treat multiple myeloma. So at that point, thalidomide was one of the standard of cares to treat these patients. And since then, industry has gone on to develop the next generation of thalidomide called lenalidomide, which is still treating patients with multiple myeloma today. At the time that Cures Within Reach funded Dr. Rajkumar, we actually weren't focused on repurposing specifically. Instead, we were just funding medical research more generally. But it was this success with Dr. Rajkumar, as well as a few other successes we had around that time, that made us think, you know what, the fastest way to patient impact is through repurposing. And so 15 years ago, we changed our focus to solely fund repurposing trials. And when you think about it, it really does make a lot of sense. Consider that there are over 7,000 unsolved diseases in the world, as well as thousands of drugs and other therapies that are approved to treat diseases. So there must be opportunity for some of the existing drugs to help treat the unsolved diseases. Of course, drug repurposing is not a replacement for de novo drug development. De novo drug development is important and will always be a part of finding treatments for patients. But drug repurposing can really be a complement to these efforts because it is a way to find treatments for patients as quickly and as cost effectively as possible. And what we've seen over the past several years is an increase in the interest in repurposing as a drug development strategy from a variety of different groups, which is great. And we love to see that. One of the consequences is that different groups have different approaches to repurposing. Some focus solely on generic therapies. Others, like Cures Within Reach, will focus on both generic and on patent therapies. Other groups will take an even broader approach and include compounds that are human safe. So they may have been tested in a phase 1 trial, shown to be safe in humans, but then shelved for some reason instead of going down the regulatory pathway. So these groups will say, let's take that compound off the shelf and test it in a new indication. So beyond just the actual therapies themselves, there are lots of other questions to consider when talking about an approach to repurposing. These can include the dose of the therapy, the delivery method, whether or not to focus on therapies that have commercial value or have low commercial value but high potential patient impact. Should drugs that are developed in adults be tested in that same indication in patients and considered repurposing? Or should repurposing be limited to strictly drugs, or can a broader definition encompass other types of therapies as well? So the bottom line from all these questions in this discussion is that there is no single approach to repurposing. It's not a one-size-fits-all strategy, and all different strategies are valid because at the end of the day, organizations who are looking at repurposing are looking to fast-track treatments for patients with unsolved medical needs and diseases. And I think that we can agree, no matter how we define repurposing, that is an important and worthy strategy. So with that said, let me share Cures Within Reach's definition of repurposing, which is taking an approved therapy, again, whether that's a drug, device, nutraceutical, or diagnostic, and testing that in a new disease area. So this definition of repurposing, where we are looking at specifically approved therapies, will be the context for the rest of the webinar today. Once again, I'd like to thank you for your time. I hope that you are looking forward to the rest of the panel. I know that I am, and I hope that you find it engaging and informative. Thank you.